In our confused and uncertain world, we all can use a measure of comfort, of healing. Whether you're struggling with personal anxiety, different challenges, present ones, or haunted by the demons of the past, we all turn to therapy, to medication, to all types of solutions in search of finding some inner peace. Most of these methods don't really work, or if they do, they're very short term. Please join me in the fourth and final part of our series called The Divine Art of Healing, 7 Steps to Comfort. This is based on a 3,000-year-old, time-tested, proven formula that is both lasting, sustainable, and really gets not just to the symptoms, but to the root of healing and finding comfort even in the most difficult circumstances. And we broke it down into the 7 steps alluded to in the very word comfort. So in the first 3 parts of the series, we covered the C, connect, the O of comfort, open your heart, the M, make space, the F, feel, the O, offer light. And in this final part, we will be addressing the R and T of comfort, reassure and transform. Please join me. Hi, this is Simon Jacobson, discussing the fourth and final part of our series, The Divine Art of Healing, 7 Steps to Comfort. In this part, we'll be addressing the R and T of comfort, reassure, and transform. This program is dedicated in honor of our dear friends Avram and Karen Ashkenazi. Karen just celebrated her birthday. With heartfelt gratitude for the joy, light, and inspiration they bring to our community, which is a global community world over, literally reaching millions and millions of people, especially now through the latest tools of technology, AI, where you can check out, go to our website, you'll see the AI tools right available for you. Thousands of hours of people having conversations essentially with all the content that we have created over the years. Please partake. So, comfort, healing. Those are powerful words, and yet it's still so elusive. How many billions, maybe even trillions of dollars have been spent on trying to find some resolution to our challenges, to our traumas, to pains, to our insecurities, our fears, whether it's therapy, medication, mainstream methods, alternative methods. And the mere fact, like I've heard quite a few times, the fact that books are still bestsellers promising us healing, comfort, tells you it's not working. Because if it was working, you didn't need to have another bestseller. What I'm presenting here are ideas, and I would go further than ideas, are spiritual insights into the very nature of our psyche and how to create tools and resources of bringing comfort to ourselves and to others based on a 3,000-year-old formula. So in the previous weeks, The previous parts of this program we've covered in the 7 steps of healing. 7 steps of the divine art of healing, 7 steps to comfort. To comfort, we've covered the C of comfort, connect. The O, open your heart. The M, make space. The F, feel. The O, offer light. And now let's cover the last 2 and discuss and explore reassure, the R of comfort, and T, transform. So obviously, all these steps are about emotional empathy, helping somebody by showing that you're there with them. And each step had its own particular personality, if you wish, to get us to that place. And it's also grown. We've grown. In the last part of this series, we covered feel, what true empathy is, and offer light, that it's not just a matter of feeling, but having someone bring light into your life. And light dispels darkness. So that leads us right into the next one called the R of reassure. Reassure is another way of saying hope. One of the most beautiful gifts in life, hope. We often take it for granted. No, it's a nice word, it's a cliche for some. But what it really is telling you, that no matter what circumstance you're in, no matter how hopeless or helpless you may feel, there's hope. Imagine life without hope. Would we be able to survive? Would we be able to endure? Hope tells you that even when things are challenging, there's the hope that things are going to get better. But where does this hope come from? And how do we communicate that, especially to someone or to ourselves who's given up on hope? As they say, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not the light of the oncoming train. That wouldn't be very helpful. I remember receiving an email from someone who had lost a young husband. She left with these little children. Very difficult. But she signed the email with the following words, which were so, they literally shook me to the core, in a good way. She wrote, "At the end, all will be good. If it's not good, it means it's not the end." And I remember I met her and I asked her, is that like a line that, or you really, because it was coming from a person who was going through a heart-wrenching pain in her life and loss. And she says, "I absolutely believe that." And you always try to wonder, can that be bottled? Can that be replicated? How do you infuse people who seem to be at the edge and they don't feel there's anywhere to go with that type of confidence? So this goes back to the very soul of who we are. That there is within us, no matter what your different voices tell you, an infatigable, indestructible part of your soul that can never be extinguished, like a pilot flame. We may not always be aware of it. We may allow our melancholy or our anguish and our anxiety to block out that voice, but it's there. Like a song waiting to be unleashed. So reassure is telling a person, including telling ourselves, that there's more to life, there's more to you and to your destiny than you see. Now, of course, the challenge is always the cognitive versus the emotional. We can understand it with our minds, but our hearts, our emotions may not be receptive. You can reassure a child when they wake up in the middle of the night that there are no demons and no monsters under their bed or in the closet. But if the child is trembling in fear for irrational reasons, all the logic in the world is not going to help. You can open the closet, you can look under the bed, but as soon as you leave, the child's fantasies and imagination takes over that the monsters can come right back. I remember a time in my life when I was very young, there was creaks at night. I always was afraid something's happening. As much as logic says, maybe a creaking bed, maybe someone came in through the door, a noise here, a noise there. It's not about rational. I can't resist sharing. There was this guy who was having nightmares every night. He was having nightmares that there were demons under his bed. And he couldn't get it out of his head. As much as he peeked under the bed, he thought they'd disappear as soon as he peeks. Finally, his wife says to him, listen, why don't you go to therapy, see what's going on, go through the usual suspects, what's bothering you. Okay, so I was going to therapy. Week after week, they're exploring his past, his traumas, his fears, his childhood, the whole list. Nothing's helping. Still having these nightmares, waking up in panic in the middle of the night. The New Year's about to come, Rosh Hashanah. The rabbi says to him, I hope you join us for the services and I hope you give your annual donation. He was one of the supporters. He says, this year, Rabbi, sorry. The rabbi says, please, why? Has anything happened? He said, are you making less money? He said, no, but I'm spending a lot of money in therapy. And he tells him what the story is. And the rabbi gave him a short piece of advice. All the nightmares were gone. Didn't have to pay for therapy. He could make his donation. He meets the psychiatrist or the therapist one day. Says, what happened to you? Why did you stop coming? He says, I spoke to my rabbi. He gave me a short piece of advice. It solved the problem. What did he tell you to do? He said, he told me to cut down the legs of the bed. So the bed was now on the ground. So that obviously no monsters can get in anymore. Point being that you can give people all the logic and the rationale, but to reassure someone is to hold your child who is trembling, who's fearful, and say, I'm with you. It's not a matter of rationale, not a matter of logic. It's just showing that you're reassuring. And that's the 6th step in comfort, the reassurance we provide each other. But that requires, obviously, being present. So they all overlap. You talk about connect, open your heart, make space, feel, offer light. But reassure focuses on the embrace, the reassurance. I'm with you. You're not alone. And even when things may be difficult, and you may not see where the light is coming from, I reassure you things will be good. It's when a mother tells her newborn child, I'll always be there for you. Don't ever underestimate that power. And reassurance is not lip service. It's something that resonates. The R of comfort. Which then leads us to step number 7. Transform, the T of transform, comfort. Now, transform is a big word. If you notice from all these 6 steps before, we didn't use a word quite like that. Transform is where there's a real change that happens. If you do the first 6 steps, you will lead to a transformation. And this leads us into the theme and topic of how you harness pain and sorrow and turn it into growth. So this isn't just comforting someone to regain their strength, to feel cared for, to feel the empathy, or like we just said, to reassure. But you're actually helping someone transform. I remember I gave a talk in South Africa, it was. So I was there for a lecture tour for over a week. One of the talks that I delivered was a special talk, which was not so easy, frankly. it was people in the community that had suffered losses, like the loss of a child, God forbid. Unusual type of losses, not just the death of a parent. More traumatic, tragic, even every death, I should say, is traumatic. But the unusual and more difficult ones. Why was it so hard for me to do? Because, what do you say? What do you say? If you're an honest person, I'm going to get up there and some waxing eloquent, philosophical. So I spoke from my heart best as I could, that silence is often the best response, because we don't have answers. And all the brilliance in your mind cannot speak to a bleeding and crying heart. And I said, so we're not looking for answers, we're looking for strength. Obviously I elaborated, I shared some stories. I thought that it was somewhat comforting, empowering. And then in my talk, there were questions. One woman stood up. Remember, it was like a very, very tense moment, if you wish. And she starts speaking about her tragedy, lost a child at a young age. She says, I thought I would never be able to survive that. Day after day, 24/7, the agony, I could not function. I couldn't move forward. And then she said, but I want to disagree with something that you said. I agree that you don't have complete answers, but I did find an answer. My answer came in the form of being able to take the grief and doing something in honor of my child that is now helping many, many people. And I found an answer in that, not just strength. The energy of the grief. And she said, as you just explained in your talk, I channeled it, because it's energy. Grief is energy. Agony is energy. Pain is energy. The only thing, it's negative energy. But if you can harness it and direct it, it's tremendous power. The power of sorrow is awesome. However, like I said, negative energy. It overwhelms us. Like fire, it consumes us. But if you direct fire in the right way, you can transform. And it was a very powerful moment, a defining moment in some ways. I saw how other parents and other individuals in the room were nodding along. And it reminded me, just a day before, my host had taken me to see, he was the chairman, I believe, or the CEO of Nissan Motors in South Africa, in Johannesburg. I remember seeing him. We came into his office, a big office. He was like a really, like, talking about a real Afrikaans. Think of what some people call an Irish American, but like well built, looked like a football player, strong guy. And we said hello. And my host said, this is Rabbi Simon Jacobson, author of Toward a Meaningful Life, the book that has such impact on your life. And then the gentleman, the chairman, asked the host to step outside. He wanted to speak to me privately. This man, this big, tough man, leader of a company, thousands of employees, says to me with tears in his eyes, says it was just a while ago, I think he said a year or 2 years, that my son, my 19-year-old boy, he called him a golden soul. He had the soul of an angel. And he died in my arms. 19-year-old boy. The love of my life. I could not get back to my own life. I really could not go back to work. I was completely paralyzed. Finally, after a few months, I made it back to my office. And I remember people greeting me, consoling me, comforting me. And there was one individual, an accountant, who was coming to give me a report of the things that had happened while I was gone. So he gave me a bunch of documents that were like spreadsheets. And under the spreadsheets, he says, I'd like to give you this. I know it may not be fitting, appropriate, but he put under the spreadsheets a book. He says, it was your book, Toward a Meaningful Life. Not only did I appreciate it, I began reading it. And this is what I learned from it. These were his words. He says, I learned from your book to give my grief to God and get strength in return, to make an exchange. And that's what happened. I was able to give my grief to God and get strength in return. I wanted to thank you. And he was like, at this point, sobbing. I was crying because of how powerful this moment was. So transformation is an unbelievable and final step of comforting someone. It's not just saying things will be fine, you'll grow through it, you'll forget, the pain and the anguish will subside. It's much more than that. It's redeeming. It's redeeming the tragedy. And that's where you'll see the people who become strong through difficulties. That's what they do. Where that comes from? It comes from a deep, deep seated hope, faith, trust in something greater than themselves. And that allows them to channel, redirect, and harness the powerful energy of grief, of pain, into something positive. In the example of building something in the name of the loved one. Or other ways. It's not just about controlling it or learning how to compartmentalize it. It's channeling it. That's called transformation. From pain comes purpose. From sorrow, strength. And this isn't just a theoretical thing. To use the verse in the Bible, the Jews who suffered in Egypt, says the more they were oppressed and afflicted, the more they thrived and they flourished and blossomed. The more the olive is squeezed, the better the oil it produces. And that's the ultimate response and the ultimate comfort. Look what was born from that pain. In the words of the Psalm, those that sow with tears will reap with joy. The tears become raindrops that give birth and make things grow. It's very hard to explain because when you're in that abyss, when you're in the throes of such darkness, you feel you're never getting out of there. The tentacles are so strong they completely control you. But when you look back and you see people who have taken tragedy, who've taken difficulties, taken the tears and turned them into raindrops, turned them into water that makes things grow, you realize exactly that. What you've done is harness and channel the energy. I think of a black hole. So Einstein predicted black holes. First it was debunked, and later it was proven. What is a black hole? It's a star whose gravitational pull is so powerful it doesn't even allow light to escape. So it's called a black hole. You don't even see light. So how do we know it's there? Because you see it's exerting power on objects around it. It's like imagine suddenly here's a piece of metal on this table and you see it move. And no one's pulling it, there are no strings. So you realize there must be a magnet somewhere. There must be another force that we can't see. It could be behind the wall, it could be under the table. That's causing it to move. So when you see, let's say, other celestial bodies orbiting, and suddenly their orbit goes out of a predicted path or lane, what caused it to suddenly change course? There has to be something affecting it. It's these black holes that are exerting so much power that it affects other objects. So the other objects are telling you that there's something there. A little like when we talk about sonograms or sonar. You don't see the submarine, but you see the bouncing off of the sonar signals, so you can recognize that there must be an object there. But the key is the black hole. Today they say that 80, 90% of the universe is either dark matter or dark energy. We don't see it. Let's translate that into psychological terms. A black hole is when a person, so much energy, but it's going in the wrong direction. It's imploding, inversion, inward, and that's why it eats us up alive. But if you're able to harness it and direct it, you know how much power there is there? Even more power than another star, because the other star has gravitational pull, but not as strong as a black hole that doesn't allow the light to escape. So it's about channeling, about unleashing that tremendous potential. I always say this. When I meet people, young people at risk, they call them, different addictions, alcohol, drugs, other stuff. Mediocre people will only have mediocre addictions, if you can call it that. People it's with passion, with real drive, with a lot of energy, are the ones that can be most addicted because they have that energy. And where is it going? If it's not going in the right direction, it can be very destructive. A small fire is a small fire. A great fire is far more potentially all-consuming and destructive. So it's about channeling that energy. And the same thing is the energy of pain and grief and loss and trauma. The channeling of it is by looking for things that you really enjoy doing. And taking the grief and say, I'm going to take that energy, it's going to go all into the things that I believe in. Not easy to do. You have to get over the stage of anger and bitterness and pain and the big question, the whys, the why. But when you do, you transform. And that's where the ultimate comfort comes from. I remember seeing my grandmother after she lost her son in a car accident. And she could not, when she would wash the floors, I remember she would always say his name quietly. Oy, my Yosef Yitzchak, my Yosef Yitzchak. It was very hard to see. But then I remember watching her once on a Shabbat, sitting in a corner reading something. There was this unbelievable calm about her. And I knew it was not a regular calm. It wasn't just she was calm. She was still thinking about her son. But something about the Shabbat, something about that moment of tranquility, perhaps connecting with God, with her own soul, without words. I didn't even ask her. I just watched it. A calm, like the eye of the tornado. It's the calmest place, but it's right in the middle of the tornado. That's an example a bit of what happens. Now, no one should ever know of such losses. That's not why I'm addressing them. I think no matter where we are in life, we need to realize that the ultimate goal, going from connecting to open your heart, to make space, feel, offer light, reassure, is to transform, is to take that energy and turn it into a positive forward thrust. Think of a dam. A dam, the resistance of a dam, the water builds up, and then what happens? It has so much energy. And if you harness it correctly, you can change worlds. And indeed, you see many of the inventions, many of the innovations, scientific and otherwise, often come from a lot of pain, individuals who suffered greatly. They took their suffering was what drove them. They did not allow them to be complacent, indifferent, apathetic. It drove them to great heights. Like all resistance does, like all competition does. May each of you, may each one of us be blessed with a life of true comfort, of true healing. Yes, we should be blessed with the least amount of challenges, but when they do come, to know how to comfort ourselves and to know how to comfort others in these 7 steps of comfort. Ultimately, to transform darkness into light, bitter into sweet, pain into purpose. And in the words of the prophet, that ultimately all the anguish will be transformed, not just eliminated, into happiness and joy and celebration. Especially as we are now in the month of Elul, the last month of the Hebrew year, preparing for the new year, when we go through the 7 weeks of comfort. That's what it's called, Shiva de Nechemta, the 7 weeks of comfort that came after the 3 weeks of affliction and anguish, leading right into Rosh Hashanah, that it should be a blessed year, and a revealed blessings, materially, spiritually, all in good health. And those that need salvation and redemption, may they have that, wherever they are in this world. And may we ultimately transform the darkness of this world into tremendous light, in turning this material world into a spiritual garden, where we all live in harmony within our diversity. Be blessed and be well. This has been Simon Jacobson. MeaningfulLife.com is our website where you can find many, many resources, tools, life skills to lead a more meaningful life. Please check it out. Check out our AI companion that can help you tap into all the rich resources we have. And I'd love to hear your feedback, your comments, your thoughts. If you enjoyed what you've heard, what you feel this is meaningful, please share with others. And please subscribe to our offerings, to our YouTube channel. Again, be blessed and be well. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.